There we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keeping Up With Conspicuous. We apologise about the delay. We are having some technical difficulties, and we are really hoping it gets through the whole session, but bear with us today, because if we're a bit hesitant or waiting for someone to talk, connection issues are not great today. So let's see how it goes. But we are joined by the amazing Jacob Neal today, who is Senior Lead IT/Cloud Consulting at Kyndryl. Jacob, it's so lovely to have you on, and thank you for bearing with me this morning while we get through these technical issues together. So
not a problem. Thanks
obviously,
for having me.
no worries. Anytime. And yeah, let's hope it plays ball with us today, technology. Funnily enough, that's what we're talking about. But obviously for you, Jacob, your background and your sort of history to your career, etc. Let's start with that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in IT. I was just thinking about this last night. I've been in IT just shy of 30 years now. So straight out of high school. In high school, I did IT as well. We had IT classes at where I was at school in the States. And so I was part of the computer classes doing stuff. But I've kind of run the gambit from hardware to software, servers, storage, networking. And then I moved to the UK in 2009 and got involved with a little product at the time called BPOS, which was Microsoft Office 365 and now M365, and been working with Microsoft for the last kind of 15 years around their cloud offerings at various different companies. And I'm now at Kyndryl. The title's a bit generic. I mean, we don't really do much around titles at Kyndryl, but basically I'm the subject matter expert for CoPilot, pretty much the whole family, and Power Platform for the UK and Ireland.
Absolutely. No, I think it's always nice just hearing like people's backgrounds and where they've come from, whether they've always been in IT or sort of fell into it. It's always quite fascinating. Obviously with yourself, with the CoPilot and being like a subject matter expert around that area and Power Platform, how long have you now been within that role? It must be in recent years, I assume.
Yeah. So AI has been around for quite a while. That kind of that whole AI background and machine learning, that's been around for a lot of years. But Copilot itself's only been really the last year and a half. So November 2023, I think, is when Microsoft announced it. You had to be a special partner. You had to buy so many licenses. They only let so many people in to start with. And then that's now obviously changed and has been kind of moving at pace. We're changing almost every other week. Is new announcements, new things coming out, and new developments and new stuff. So, but yeah, it's an ever changing landscape, but it is fairly new.
Absolutely. And I can obviously imagine your job role, especially within the past year and a half probably, is just going to be constantly evolving and learning new things. And how have you found that, or how have you found adapting to all the releases and new products coming out?
Yeah, I mean it's very challenging. But that's part of, change is IT now. There is no I've gone to school, I've done a load of learning, and now I'm an expert. I know a lot of stuff, and tomorrow it might be completely different. And so you're constantly learning more stuff and trying to watch webinars and keep up on updates. And I mean, it used to be technology transitioned every kind of 18 months. I mean, we must be down to the sub weeks now. Every few weeks there's big changes happening. We're seeing big changes in across the industry, not just with the big players, but a lot of small players. It's definitely a period of transition for IT itself.
100%. And I think one of the latest buzzes and releases going on at the moment is agentic agents. There's been a lot of talk about that, but it will be good to hear your views on agentic agents and what that means to you currently.
Yeah, I mean, agents is interesting. It's it's a coin term that everybody's now jumping on. And I've seen quite a few of these fads come through. It's very similar to a lot of products Microsoft has, and Microsoft's really good about rebranding a lot of their stuff. What you're seeing is agents are going to be their big play for the next year. Their FY is in July, starts in July, around agents. And they're moving all of their marketing and terms and everything from CoPilot. Not from CoPilot, there's still going to be a lot of CoPilot stuff, but agents are going to be their big main marketing play. And really all an agent is if you think about it, is a very specific kind of a very specific helper within your organization, for something very, very defined. So rather than just saying, I'm going to go and ask my entire company internally for across CoPilot, my agent will be on a specific folder or subfolder or a couple of subfolders for very specific topics doing certain things. Or it'll be running tasks in the background and running specific automations for specific things, but learning from that. And that's, I think, the really interesting key is that it's not just running those automations, but then you add in the Gen AI on top of that, and it's learning from those automations that it's running so that it can get smarter about running that stuff in the future. So a really good example would be requests for information, RFIs or RFPs, requests for purchase, is a big document everybody gets from in the industry. Having a folder of those and just focused on that type of information, the agent will learn the type of responses that you're looking for and the type of tone that you want and all of that, and you're able to pull that out versus I'm just pulling very specific information every time you ask me. It's learning from it and generating those answers, which is quite interesting.
Definitely. I think the tech advancements at the moment are crazy how far they're going, and it's amazing to see. Obviously, from a business perspective, we know this is one of the newest releases. Have you seen a lot of people adopting it already, or are people sort of waiting for it to mature a little bit more? What's the general thoughts around that at the moment?
It's kind of a strange world. We are definitely seeing organizations, and not just small companies, big organizations going, we are putting in on this. We're betting into this. I mean, as you can see, like Microsoft, ServiceNow, Google, everybody's already kind of jumping on board of this agent world. They're promoting and pushing that into their customers quite hard and quite heavy. And a lot of big customers are jumping on going, yep, we see the value of that. We're going to do that. Some are going, no, we're going to wait and see how it turns out. I think it'll be a mix of that. I don't think there'll be a lot of people in the middle. I think it'll be kind of either we're in or we're going to wait and see. And then when we're in, we're in. And we're seeing that, like, from fairly large organizations where even like the CEOs are going, I'm seeing huge benefits for this. Everybody's in. We're doing this. Sort it out. Which is quite, it's quite amazing, but also there's a lot of timelines and stuff on there, and quite a few people have been coined, and it's really true, saying things like your AI is only as good as your data. And I think that's where a lot of people are falling down, right? Is you can't expect Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT, any of them, to fix your data problem, right? And so, and even agents won't, right? And this is something that we're talking to our customers about quite often, is you have to sort your data, right? And it may even be something where it's now at the point where you don't have to sort your current infrastructure data setup. You just need to build the news data setup that you want and start moving to it. And that's what we're seeing some organizations do, which is quite good. And quite interesting and quite different versus kind of in the past where it was like, oh, you must fix what you have. You don't have to fix what you have. Set up new and just move to the new model.
That's a very good outlook on it, actually. And very interesting that you said you feel like it will be more of a 50-50 split, which I never thought of before, but I definitely feel like I agree with you there from what I'm seeing at the moment. Now, I know we were going to talk about the sort of shift from the agentic agents and why this shift matters for people or businesses, with Microsoft Fabric. So I want to get onto that, but just for my own understanding, Microsoft Fabric is something I have only really heard of in the past year. Obviously, I'm not an IT person, but I am trying to keep up with all the products to help my knowledge, trying. But just for maybe myself, or if there are others that aren't really aware of what this product does, what is Microsoft Fabric?
Yeah. So the one thing I would say is and especially to anybody listening, don't get too caught up if you hear a term and you don't know what it is and you think, oh, I'm way behind or I don't understand. Microsoft is notorious for rebranding stuff and making it sound new and different. To really, I mean, there's more to it, but at a very base level, if you think of Fabric as a data lake, are you familiar with data lake? So a big pool of data. That's all Fabric is. It's just the Microsoft brand version of that, right? So you've got Fabric, everything storage wise, all that data is going to go into Fabric and live there. And then they're going to have CoPilot over the top of that, Power BI on that. They're going to have everything over that top layer. And then they don't have to worry about the storage stuff, right? They don't have to worry about connectors and things like that. So there's a value add for Microsoft. And you're in their world and you're utilizing their stuff, which means, you're getting charged, right? Because it's in Azure. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But Fabric, everything's being pushed towards that for that continuity bit. It's a bit cringy, but the new term is CoPilot is the UI for AI. And so the idea is that CoPilot will live over the top. You'll have Fabric underneath and graph connectors and different bits going to different things within Microsoft. But then you also have other LLMs that you want to put in. Chat, so OpenAI is the main one that they're with, but you could have Llama, you could have DeepSeek, you could have, and even a slew of these smaller ones that are really quite interesting because they're doing different things. And rather than having to pick just one, you could say, well, I want CoPilot over the top, and I want all of these other LLMs underneath, or all these different models underneath doing different things and assisting me.
I see. Okay. And would you say a lot of companies have Microsoft Fabric, or is this something that they would have to purchase additionally, as you said, sort of like to loop it all together?
Yeah, so it's their new model, new licensing model and business model. So it is an additional purchase per se. They'll be migrating people to these sorts of things as they develop and release it out, and do different things in different setups with it. So things like Power BI is now moving from Power Platform, and it's going to be part of Fabric and part of the Fabric offering. So you have different offerings coming from Fabric. And the idea is that, and so I think, and again, I just want to 100% clarify, I have no knowledge from Microsoft on this. I haven't seen any secret decks or anything, but I think Power Platform is going to go away. I think Power BI is moving. Well, I know Power BI is moving to Fabric. That's been, Microsoft's talking about that already. Power Apps and Power Automate, you're going to find most of that functionalities in agents now, funny enough. And Power Pages, I don't actually know anybody that uses Power Pages, but I don't know what they're going to do with that, but that's the lone product. I think Power Platform is going to be absorbed. And so I think the skill set will still be maintained. So if you've got automates or apps building skill sets, that'll maintain through agents. But the actual Power Platform branding, I think, is going to go eventually. Not anytime soon. I think it'll be in the next year or so.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, I can see what you mean, that it could end up that way, and it will be interesting to see whether you're that psychic Sally that's predicted this. So if it comes around, we know who to come to. That's predicting the Microsoft future.
You heard it here first.
But absolutely, Keeping Up With Conspicuous exclusive here. But no, it will be interesting to see. As you said, it sort of yeah, they end up sort of falling into different categories, and it all ends up linking still all together. But as you said, for someone who isn't constantly evolved with the tech and just doing the recruitment side of things, keeping up with all of these and, hearing different things from different people you'll talk to and trying to piece everything together. So yeah, it's sort of good to have an understanding of what's going on, and that is absolutely why I love talking to people like yourself, because it helps me understand for sure. So obviously,
Yeah, and like I said,
what, what
those skill
oh,
sets
sorry.
will hold. Yeah, sorry, there's a little bit of overlap, so I was trying to wait for a gap. Those skill sets will hold within. So don't, if you're in the market, if you're in the industry today doing Power Platform stuff, don't worry about that bit. It's more about licensing, right? And that's why I think that shift will happen. I look at Microsoft, and a lot of times when they make those changes and they do different things, there's a licensing model reason behind it, and they're not just changing stuff. And so they don't charge for Power Platform really, because it's part of E5 licensing, but they do charge for agents and the messaging, what they call the messaging, which are ticks within using the agent. And so they want to push everybody toward that agent bit, and so it makes sense that that would start to migrate through.
Definitely, yeah, no, that's a good explanation actually. So obviously, I know we've covered about agentic agents, Microsoft Fabric, and how they're sort of coming hand in hand, and the impact it has on that digital workplace. I think we'll see quite a big shift of potentially, I might be wrong, but maybe the larger businesses sort of adopting maybe and getting those licenses and tying it all together first. And then it might sort of leak down to those smaller companies once they start seeing the benefits, maybe. But I think the next thing to discuss would be generative AI, if you want to kickstart a little conversation about that.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge topic, right? So Gen AI, especially in business, I was reading an article that was quite interesting where they weren't talking about, everybody's always talking about Gen AI is going to replace your job. Maybe, but we're nowhere near that. Like, that's not happening in the next, 6 months, year, 2 years, 5 years, 10, 15 years from now. How, I don't know. I mean, I'm still waiting for my robot assistant to show up and start cleaning my house, right? So as soon as they're good, I'm signing up. I'm in. But the idea but what is interesting is that organizations and companies, not just the big ones, but we're starting to see it kind of pan down, is they're looking for people that are using Gen AI. So it's not about it replacing your job, but if you're not using it and somebody is using it and you're going for a job, they're going to go, well, this person's using Gen AI, understands it. We don't have to train them. We're going to pick them versus somebody who's not. So it's really important, I think, for people to kind of embrace it to some extent, right? And start understanding and start using it. My advice to people in general is, there's a lot of the free models out there. Start using it. Use it in your personal life. Get a feel for it. Get accustomed to it. I mean, as you can imagine, I've got CoPilot, but I've also got ChatGPT. I use a lot for my personal stuff. I've got Apple Intelligence. I play a lot with the models. But as you use it more and more, you're going to find that it does make things easier, and it makes it more intuitive to use it. Companies are seeing actual savings for using it. Companies that I personally am working with are rolling this out and seeing very specific time and cost savings and revenue generation. So you think of your sales team being able to get rid of a lot of their admin tasks. Now they can start focusing on selling, right? Think about recruiting, right? Rather than you doing all the notes and everything from meetings or summaries from the organization saying for the job they're looking for, you can cut all your admin task out, and now you're focused on finding that right person for them and going through that, right? That means that you're putting people in faster. That's helping the company faster. All of these things are just accelerations, right? And that's the bit that's really important about Gen AI, and what people are should really embrace around it, is that it's not about replacing you, it's about accelerating what you can do.
Definitely. No, I couldn't agree more with any of that. And I think, as you said, it's so important for individuals to start trying to adopt it themselves to to see the benefits. Like I use ChatGPT every single day if I need it to help me create my food shopping list or come up with meal ideas or sort me out a workout for the day because I have no motivation to gym. Like I use it all the time and I can see those type of benefits. But as you said, from a business perspective, there are so many pros to it. And yes, we don't know what 15, 20 years is going to look like. You know, we could have those cleaning robots. Cleaning robots would be great if we had them. So I think there is so many benefits to it. And one of the things that we do, um, one of the things that we do as a company, obviously we are a tech recruitment company, so we have to stay on top of trends, of course. But like today, we have our every other week we have a AI meeting, and we discuss how everyone in the company has used it from day to day, or if they found a new process to help with their work. Like we have those conversations, but it is crazy the amount of businesses that still haven't adopted it whatsoever. Let me know. But obviously we were talking about AI and the practices within workplaces and that generative AI. And I was sort of saying how amazing it is to still see so many businesses who don't want to adopt it. I don't know if you've, well, because you're in the tech business, you might not have heard of this, but we've spoken to businesses outside of the tech world that do not adopt it whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hopefully you can hear me. I think it's quite interesting. It's still in the tech world as well. I mean, we still hear it from companies as well. It reminds me of about 15 years ago, as I said, my start with Microsoft was BPOS and then Office 365. And in that product set was Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and at the time, Office Communicator / Link, which now is Teams. But this always makes me think back, because I remember having conversations with organizations around Exchange Online, moving your email to the cloud. And I had people, CIOs, CEOs, IT directors, all architects, tell me it will never happen. They'll never go to the cloud. They'll keep their servers. Everyone wants to hug the server, right? See the blinky lights. They'll never, ever put it in the cloud. And now you think, I mean, this has been the way it is for the last at least 5 years, if not longer. Everybody's in the cloud. Nobody runs Exchange servers on premise hardly anymore. Like, it's ridiculous. There's a few outlying exceptions, but nobody's doing it. AI is going to be the same thing. You're going to have loads of people that are pushing against it, resistant to the change. Unfortunately, just like anything else, they'll get left behind. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It is making a change. There's loads of stuff that's happening around governance and policies and things. Governments are kind of looking at AI and how that works, but nobody's getting rid of it. And because of that, you're seeing organizations that will adopt it and see the benefits, and you're going to see them rise and accelerate those benefits, right? And those that don't will either be late to the game or be gone, unfortunately, right? And that's kind of the hard reality. There's a lot of Exchange admins that are out of work, right? That refuse to make that change, see that this was coming and start to adapt. And now, they've had to do something else. And so AI, like I said, organizations are now looking for people that are embracing it and have experience and are using it over those that don't. And that's why I always recommend people start playing with it, get comfortable with it. You don't have to be an expert. Nobody's expecting you to know AI inside and out. I mean, it changes every week anyway, but just be adaptable and comfortable with that. That's so important with these changes. And it really can, people laugh at me, but it really can change your life. I mean, you talk about you use it for your personal stuff. I use ChatGPT. I mean, I've got it on my phone right here, and I use it all the time for stuff, ideas, different bits. I think what's interesting now is that there's some studies happening around the creativity side of in general, not just like creative stuff, but in the idea of creation, where we're getting lazy and people are asking and they don't have to think. I think there will always be a portion of that, but I don't just take whatever they give me back and that's it. I use that to help springboard, right? And move that creative bit along, right? So for an example, if I'm looking at doing some art, I may ask for a prompt and what they kind of think around that prompt and give me some ideas. That then springboards my mind to start thinking in different ways from that idea. I don't just say, oh, they've said this, I'm going to go do that. It's right, they've said this, but actually, it could be this way, it could go like this, and use it for springboard. And that's, within all of the office technologies, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, right? It gives you that baseline to get you started and get you over that blank page, that hurdle, right? And then it's up to you to fill out the rest. And there's so much you can do. So yeah, I think that's my kind of view of it, right? It's a bit harsh, I suppose, for some, but I think it's really important for people to embrace this change. It doesn't mean go full all in and you have to put everything in into AI and all of that. It's just start using it. Don't be afraid of it. Engage with it, right? That's really key.
Definitely. And I think people need to be hit with the reality of it as well. I think, well, there's different realities of it. There's the people that obviously have the negative reality of it, and then the people that have the positive reality of it. And of course, both are valid. But it's interesting because how do we overcome that barrier for people who may not be within the IT tech space, who more informed of the positives to it, rather than Barbara at home who's watching the news who says robots are going to take over the world? How do we overcome that communication barrier? What do you think is the solve?
I if I knew that answer specifically, I would probably be rich. I think there's probably, with everything, right? I think you have to take a grain of salt, right? When AI came out, if you look back, kind of a year and a half ago, when it really started to hit that slope, that upward slope, and become real popular, the amount of people that came out saying it's the end of the world was insane, and like really smart people, right? You had head of industries, and it wasn't just like Bob with his tinfoil hat out back, and talking about it's the end of the world. It was people that you would assume know what they're talking about, and not that they don't, but it you have to take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt, right? I think that's the first thing. What's really interesting is the parallels between this and, if you go back to the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution. And if you look at articles that were written in the paper at that time of that change, they're almost identical in wording to what's being released now. Machines are going to take our jobs. It's the end of the world. The workforce is going to go, as unemployment's going to skyrocket, and people are going to be unemployed. And these are, all the papers were releasing this out at the beginning of that industrial age. Same stuff is coming out now, right? It's almost verbatim. It's really crazy, that parallel. I think it's just human nature, right, to kind of think that. We've also got sci-fi movies and stories, which I'm obviously a big fan of, that kind of preempt that in your head, going, I'm ready for the robots to take over. I've seen Terminator, I've seen iRobot, right? I've seen these things. And fair enough. I mean, one day, maybe, I guess. Again, can't predict the future. But I think we need to look at that and go, okay, that's movie world. These people are saying things. Okay, I'll take that in mind. But what else is out there? And I think that's the big key, is that the people have to kind of do their own diligence. There's still a lot of stuff to be aware of for pitfalls. I mean, I do conversations and starting to do some for military vets, that are making that transition to civilian life and to year 6. So you're kind of graduates, right? Talking about coming into the new world. AI is great. I'm obviously a big fan. But there's things to be aware of, right? Like, don't put all your data in there, right? I mean, that's stuff, right? Be aware of everybody promising you all the stuff that it can do. Wait, maybe not be that first onboarded person. Maybe see how, use established stuff. Gemini, ChatGPT, CoPilot. These are by big organizations that can't afford to lose their customer base by releasing absolutely terrible things. Right? Versus a startup, Oh, if that fails, claim bankruptcy, revamp, restart, right? Microsoft can't do that, right? Like they're investing literally billions of dollars into this. Like this is,
Wow.
this is that indication of, is this real? Well, Google and Microsoft and Amazon and Samsung and Facebook or Meta are literally investing billions of dollars a piece into this industry. Is not going anywhere. And so, as you develop through, it's on the phones, whether it's
Yeah.
Apple or Google or Samsung, you've got them, built into your phones now. Start using them. Ask them questions. Be daft. Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it, right? Ask stupid questions, right? I tell people, start, instead of searching the web, use whatever you're comfortable with using, search engine wise, Gen AI wise, to
Yeah.
search for stuff, right? Because the key is that it remembers what you're asking, and you can modify that without having to try to modify your search going, that didn't return what I want. How do I switch what I asked to actually fit this way? I need to, it actually, mine, I'll go, oh, I want to learn Python scripting. Okay, well, how long do you want to learn it for? What kinds, do you want to pay for it? Do you want me to create a plan for you? I can do all that through there, and at the end have something, versus I'm doing a general search on the web, right? And then trying to build it myself. This helps me do that.
100%. I think there's so many uses of it, and I think in terms of like people outside the tech world, they don't realize how much it actually comes into their day-to-day lives still. Like my partner, he isn't anything techie. He's within law, and he has chat gpt on his phone, right? He's very much into his music and produces music and stuff, and he'll ask stuff about like how to build certain things within his music industry and stuff like that. And he absolutely loves it and can see the benefits. But, you know, there's other people that don't realize that. Take working from home as an example. Loads of people you speak to nowadays do not want to go into an office, and they're demanding this hybrid or mainly remote working nowadays. It wouldn't be, a lot of this wouldn't be possible without this modern workplace that's been adjusted to our lives now, technically. And, you know, if you aren't from a tech background, you don't see that actually all of this is enabling the lifestyle you're wanting. Of course, if it gets in the wrong hands, let's face it, it can cause issues. But that's why you've just got to be super careful. And as you said, data, keep it sort of safe until you know the foundations are right. But there's so much to it.
Yeah, I mean, anything's dangerous in the wrong hands, right? Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is. But it's interesting to hear other people's use cases as things come through. It is integrated in life. Like, everything that you do is having this involvement. And while I hate saying the word COVID, everybody said, kind of says, oh, COVID's changed, the working from home landscape. I don't think it did. I think it accelerated it, right? So if I
Yeah.
think back pre-COVID, I've been in IT, like I said, almost 30 years. I've always worked remote. I've always, I mean, and even in the early days, I was going to the office, but pre-COVID, I was going into the office a few days a week, maybe. Otherwise, I was working remote. I was working on customer sites. I was working from home. I was working wherever. COVID accelerated that across the board. We were always heading that way. So I think we were about 10 years away from where COVID brought us to in a year, right? That obviously the infrastructure hadn't built up around that, right? But our aspect, if you look at people's aspect and expectations, those are changing as well. This idea that, I have to go into the office, I have to engage with colleagues, I have to travel up to a couple hours into the office every day and then a couple hours home. Now I work from home, I can engage with my family. So, I've got a 5-year-old, so I'm with my son a lot. I've got friends, so I can go and meet them for lunch because they're just up the road and they're working from home. I can, all of a sudden now it's work is work, and you do that bit and you have to, but actually now I've got a real life as well. And I don't think we
Yeah.
had that before, that balance, right? Where before it was, oh, well, if you got to put in those extra hours, you do that. And, you kind of grind through. Now it's, I can put in those hours, but I can still make those hours up in other ways by, like I said, going out for, during the day, seeing friends, being with family, doing errands that I just didn't have before.
Absolutely. But I think it's the tech that's enabled that. Yep,
100%.
COVID could have been a catalyst, but as you said, prior to that, people were working hybrid, maybe not fully remote, but it's been a catalyst for tech companies to really keep enhancing that tech to be able to accommodate to a new way of living. And I think that's sort of the baseline and fundamentals of it.
Yeah, it was interesting. A lot of people don't remember this, but I remember obviously being involved with Microsoft. Their ramp up of Teams was, I mean, I don't even know what the numbers were. The numbers were just staggering, from users that went from one to the next, where they had to ramp up the capability of Teams, and it was exponential, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody used Teams, but you're in the office, so I could Teams you, but actually, so you're just right over there. I just walk over and talk to you, versus now where I have to Teams you because you're 20 miles over there, right? And so that idea, then all of a sudden people didn't realize it, but in Teams, that just their usage just went nuts in literally 3 months. They were talking about it, it was thousands of percents of increase of users, and capability, and so they had to really quickly. I mean, I remember Teams was a bit sluggish at first, and obviously still has some issues, but we won't go there. But they had to really ramp that up at that time, and a lot of people don't remember that. But I thought it was quite interesting, that kind of byproduct, because while yes, we were kind of, always seeing it kind of heading this way, we weren't ready for it, right? And you had to have that infrastructure to make it work. Like, 20 years ago, you couldn't work from home. Like, it just wouldn't work. How would you engage? Email? I mean, that would be your only real capability, and phone calls, and sitting on a conference call, everybody sitting on their phone listening in, right? Versus doing this kind of stuff. So that really changed that whole landscape. Without technology, we wouldn't have had that. And AI is a lot of that back end stuff happening now. That's making things better. It's accessing things that we wouldn't normally realized, and modifying and accelerating things.
Yeah, so true. I think honestly, this topic you could just talk for hours about, and just
days.
Yeah, days, hours, weeks, but like everyone has different views on it and brings sort of new ideas into this area, and that's why I love talking about it. I know we have had some comments, but because of technical issues, I didn't get notified about any of them. So I do apologize if you've been commenting. We'll get back to them after the podcast, because I appreciate both me and Jacob have some work to get back to. But Jacob, I don't know whether you've got any final sort of roundups or thoughts you'd like to leave the viewers with regarding AI as a whole.
The only thing I can, the best advice, and I always give this out, is be cautious, but be open and try it, right, and use it, right, and even if you think, oh, I don't, I wouldn't normally need it for this thing, give it a go and see what happens, right? In the early days, one of the funniest ones I had was a woman that I worked with came up and was like, I don't really know how I would use this. And I said, okay, well, work aside, what do you have coming up? And she said, oh, I'm going on a Hindu to Blackpool. And I said, perfect, right? We're going to use AI. And we sat down and used AI to plan that out for her. And she's like, this is nuts. I gave her hotel ideas, options to go do within a budget that she had to spend for her age group, because they were a little bit, so not, I don't want to say old, but older, like in they weren't like 20s, they were in their 30s. So they wanted a slightly different experience. So things that they could go and do, where they could stay, what was local, what was within walking, food. We worked out that whole thing within about 30 minutes. She's like, this is nuts. This would have taken me weeks of planning to figure all this out. Right. And so this is the kind of thing I use it all the time for questions about. I want to set up, I'm looking to build my own personal agent. I want to use these LLMs. I want to put it together. How does that work? How can I time together? What should I think about? It also makes me think about things I might have missed. Right. And I think that's really important as well. Don't get tied up on a specific technology, right? Like obviously I'm a Microsoft fan, but there's Google, there's ChatGPT, there's Llama, there's loads of options out there. if you're new and you're not kind of really into it, go with the mainstream, right? Stay mainstream, stay away from the new stuff. Only until they kind of get a little bit more rigid around some of the policies and the governance around it. But yeah, I mean, just there's loads of options out there. It's loads of fun if you really want it to be.
I think, yeah, that's a perfect roundup. Absolutely love that. And just to finish off, I don't know whether you've ever got this far in the podcasts, if you've watched them, but Jacob, if you were not your senior lead IT/cloud consulting at Kyndryl, and you were not allowed a job in the tech space at all, what would
All
your
right.
job be?
Oh man, I don't know. I've been tech since I was a kid. I'm a huge geek. I've got gadgets. I've got like 3 iPads. I mean, I love tech. What would I
Odd
be?
question then.
Yeah. I would probably go. I don't know. Work at a checkout. I'd probably do it. Probably art, I guess, if you could call what I do art. Probably something in sales. I like talking to people and engaging. So maybe I go sell some shoes or something.
Maybe. I like it. I like it. Well, honestly, Jacob, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. I'm so sorry about technical difficulties today. It seemed to have worked itself out towards the end. So I'm glad people, if you've bared with us, thank you so, so much. But yes, everyone, I hope you have a lovely day. Jacob, we'll catch up after this, but thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we will catch everyone next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.